If this whole Stefon Diggs situation was ever going to actually happen, right now might be about as good a window as it gets. There's a fresh update straight from respected insiders, a durability crisis brewing at receiver, a genuinely exciting rookie standout story, and a center competition that just got thrown wide open by injury. Let's break down everything happening in Ashburn as training camp rolls into its first weekend. Let's start with the Diggs situation because the signal just got noticeably louder. According to ESPN's John Keim, if there's one player this organization would realistically sign right now, it's Stefon Diggs, and Keim specifically noted the team is monitoring the situation, meaning the lines of communication are genuinely open, even if that doesn't necessarily mean active, imminent negotiations. Around the same time, Nikki Javala of The Athletic posted a not-so-subtle hint of her own, essentially sending up the same signal. And here's an important detail worth remembering. Deebo Samuel has now officially signed back with San Francisco, removing one alternative option from the board entirely, reportedly despite wanting to return to Washington himself. That market simply didn't come together, settling for a modest one-year deal worth just $7 million, which says something interesting about how the greater veteran receiver market has shaken out this offseason overall. The bigger question now is whether Diggs specifically wants to land in Washington, and multiple people have suggested exactly that throughout this entire offseason. There's also word that his camp has been actively working to make that specific match happen, though it's fair to note that trying could simply mean picking up the phone without much traction on the other end so far. Here's exactly why this matters so much right now. A certain veteran receiver's durability track record is making it increasingly difficult to count on him going forward. Across his career, he's dealt with a torn ankle, a broken collarbone, multiple concussions, foot problems, and a broken finger just last season, on top of missing a chunk of training camp this summer with additional foot soreness. None of this is said with any disrespect intended toward him personally, but the pattern speaks for itself. This is a player whose career has been repeatedly defined by unavailability, and if this front office doesn't add outside help at receiver, the sixth roster spot at the position likely comes down to a fringe veteran or an undrafted rookie. And realistically, if you're comparing pure talent level, Stefon Diggs remains a better football player right now than nearly everyone on this current roster outside of Terry McLaurin himself. Now let's shift over to the quarterback, because Jayden Daniels genuinely settled in nicely after a slower start. He opened camp a bit shaky but warmed into form by the end of day one and looked sharp throughout day two as well. To be fair, that doesn't mean the offense as a whole looked great. There were drops from receivers and running backs alike, even if the tight ends had a solid showing. But there's important context worth remembering here. Defensive linemen currently have a real advantage with pads not yet on, since offensive linemen simply don't have anything to hold on to or anchor against right now, making it easier than usual for the defense to generate pressure, especially with a genuinely creative new scheme being installed. On top of that, Daniels is working with a jumbled, mixed group of skill players who won't necessarily reflect the actual starting lineup once the regular season begins. Add it all up, and there's no reason to panic about early offensive struggles just yet. If this same story is still playing out 2 weeks from now with no outside additions and no real improvement, that becomes a legitimate concern. Right now, it's simply too early to draw that conclusion. Speaking of the offensive line, there's a genuinely interesting subplot developing at center, with starter Nick Allegretti sidelined by what's been described as a calf strain, distinctly different language than the mere soreness description used for the aforementioned receiver's foot issue. Veteran Julian Good-Jones has been taking first-team reps, while the team's rookie sixth-round center has been working with the twos in the meantime. A calf strain, even a mild one, typically requires anywhere from 1 to several weeks of recovery, and given that this is only training camp with no immediate game on the schedule, this coaching staff is likely to be especially cautious with that timeline. That raises a genuinely interesting decision point for this front office. If health or performance concerns linger at that position deep into camp, Is it time to explore outside veteran options at center before the regular season begins against a genuinely difficult opening slate of opposing defensive fronts? Now for some standout performances worth revisiting. Edge rusher Odafe Oweh has continued looking like an entirely different player through the first 2 days, showing exactly the kind of disruptive presence that justifies his substantial free agent investment this offseason. Standing 6'5" with tremendous length and elite athletic testing numbers, he's already been generating consistent pressure, showing up in the backfield and racking up practice sacks and run stuffs. That's exactly the kind of validation this front office was hoping for after making him one of the largest financial commitments of the entire offseason. Rookie receiver Antonio Williams also continued building on an already strong start, reportedly torching a veteran linebacker on an in-breaking route over the middle of the field, a play Terry McLaurin himself specifically praised during a recent press conference, highlighting how effectively Williams manipulates leverage and disguises his route breaks. That's a genuinely encouraging sign for a rookie many are hoping can handle real receiver 2 responsibilities sooner rather than later. And then there's the feel-good story of camp so far. Undrafted rookie receiver Jayden Bradley, who has been fully bought into every phase of this offseason program, all the way from rookie minicamp through the dead period leading into training camp, reportedly even training alongside veteran teammates during the offseason. Terry McLaurin has specifically praised his work ethic and commitment, essentially describing him as having been joined at the hip throughout this entire process. Standing 6'4" but moving with the sharp, sudden cuts you'd typically expect from a much smaller slot receiver, Bradley has already flashed real ability on the practice field, giving him a genuine chance to make this roster regardless of what happens with outside additions at the position. There's also a fascinating schematic wrinkle developing on defense worth understanding. Multiple linebackers have separately described feeling most comfortable at the Mike linebacker position, which actually points toward a deliberate strategy rather than any kind of internal conflict. This new defensive scheme appears built around genuine positional interchangeability at linebacker, making it deliberately difficult for opposing offensive linemen to identify exactly who the primary run-fitting linebacker is on any given play. That kind of disguised versatility could be a real asset for this defense all season long, even if it means opposing quarterbacks and offensive coordinators are going to have a genuinely difficult time diagnosing protections against it. One piece of encouraging clarification worth passing along: running back Bill Krosky-Merritt, who dealt with real fumbling issues a year ago, was reported to have fumbled again in a recent practice. But it turns out that play actually occurred after the whistle had already blown the play dead, meaning it wasn't a live fumble at all. So there's no need for anyone to panic about a recurring ball security issue based on that particular report. Elsewhere, receiver Luke McCaffrey has quietly been generating real buzz, drawing multiple targets in the end zone during recent practices, including one contested drop followed by a touchdown grab. Given how limited actual reps are during any individual practice, split across multiple quarterback groups working with different personnel, the fact that he's found real separation twice in the end zone speaks well of his continued development, with some insiders even suggesting this could be a genuine breakout season for him in terms of overall target volume. And finally, there's a broader sentiment worth acknowledging about this year's offensive installation compared to last season's scheme. Multiple players, including tight end Ben Sinnott, have offered genuinely glowing praise about how different and more enjoyable this new offensive approach feels, particularly in how it incorporates tight ends into the passing game. Combined with the front office's own public comments describing this new system as more quarterback-friendly, there's a clear sense of relief permeating through this locker room about leaving the previous offensive approach behind. So here's where things stand heading into the first weekend of open training camp practices. A Stefon Diggs signing that feels closer than it has all offseason, even if nothing is imminent or guaranteed. A quarterback settling in nicely despite a jumbled supporting cast. a center competition thrown wide open by injury, and a handful of genuinely exciting standout performances from names like Odafe Owe, Antonio Williams, and Jaden Bradley that should have this fan base feeling good about the direction of this roster. So tell us, what's your biggest takeaway from these first 2 days of training camp? And do you think Stefon Diggs ends up in Washington before this season kicks off? Let us know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single update as training camp continues to unfold. There's a lot more to track in the days ahead. And we'll be right back here with the next update very soon. Hail to the Commanders.